It is another Light News Radio. Self-empowerment for the whole human being. The place where sick and tired is no longer of oneself. Featuring your host, Dr. Richard Jelisich, and co-host Deirdre Layton. Together, they finish each other's sentences, laugh, and take you from feeling hopeless to overjoyed to rock your world. And now, here are your hosts, Dr. J and Deirdre.
Welcome, fellow light travelers, to Light News Radio, Realms of Self-Empowerment. Now, just after the amazing solstice and full moon, we begin our third year of broadcasts. You know, an urgency is in the air to bring you the best programming that illustrates the mind-body-spirit connection through our own vast experience and bringing you powerful interviews with guests who really are walking their spiritual talk. I am Richard Jelisich, also known as Dr. J, your host, and my ever-effulgent, effusive, and effectively radiant co-host is Deirdre Layton. Together, we bring you grounded spirituality where the rubber hits the road, impactful and relevant news, and interviews of people who really are walking their talk, as I said. Well, at this station, you can park the airy fairy, you can park the smoke and mirrors, because that ain't going to work here. You can put those by the side of the road because we are all about helping you to empower your life through understanding your true spiritual nature. Yeah, that your strudel as well. Well, that's okay. A little dessert never hurt anybody. What I like to call the whole human being. So come aboard our beam of light and enlighten your load as we travel the waves of knowledge and wisdom for the next hour. I thought I got through most of that pretty well.
I don't know even why you try sometimes, because I'm looking at what you were trying to say going, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I would really mess that up. It would be so, no, I think it's great. Really? I love it.
Well, I like that too. And maybe you should read your own intro.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think. Well, you know what? I would wing it. I would have to wing it because if I tried to read something, I would have Trollfmubble, and it would just. I
know. You'd have Dane Bramage.
And I would.
You could say, I am the ever-effulgent, effusive, effectively radiant co-host.
That's right.
So we should have you do the intro one time and say,
Oh, well, I have a Wednesday wisdom for you. I want you to picture yourself standing.
Oh, she just went away.
Standing on a beautiful deck. So, listeners, you can do this too. You're a unicorn family, and you're standing on a beautiful deck, and it goes off into a lovely green space. And you watch your child, the baby unicorn, come running out of the house and go to do a somersault. Next thing you know, their arse is in the air and their horn is stuck in the soil. And the moral of the story is, what's the moral of the story? Any idea?
I'm sure you're going to tell us.
Well, I guess it is, watch before you leap. But so there you go. It's much better when you see it as a cartoon.
Okay.
But no, it was really a cute moral, right? Like this.
Yeah, I thought it had something to do with the single horn, trying to go head over heels or something. I'm sure there's some deep spiritual meaning there, but I'm having a little trouble finding it right now.
Well, it's more just fun. It's more just fun, right? You have to let things go sometimes and not be so stuck up on what's going on in life. It's interesting because, up here in Canada, we're watching the shenanigans, well, that's what we're calling it, in the U.S. with regards to certain candidates that you have running for election and things like that. And
the Gong Show, otherwise known as the race for the presidency.
Oh my goodness. Mm-hmm. And I shake my head and I sometimes wonder that I think that there's some people walking around and they're holding bags of rocks in their heads, but that's just my personal point of view.
It's a really good point because a lot of people are seeing all this election fraud being proved by different organizations, and the Dalai Lama talks about. He says, "Well, don't just do prayer. Don't don't just pray and wait for God to do something. This time for, we ourselves have to do something. So, if you see something wrong in the world, then stand up for what you believe in. I mean, there's nonviolent and loving ways of doing that, but you can still voice your opinion and say, well, look, how come it is that Mr. Sanders his votes are not being counted because there's some other thing going on here that we really don't want a person for president who's kind, loving, and repealing all of the vast corruption that's going on in the world. So, that's part of spiritual empowerment, is walking your talk. And like our guest today, she is one of the many people that we've had on our show over the past 2 years who Deirdre and I carefully pick people we feel are walking their spiritual talk.
Yeah, well, and I understand that we really go through the ringer when we look for people. Ringer is not the right word. I was trying to think of a word that would be appropriate, right? But we know a lot of people and we interview a lot of people, and we really work at pulling people together that are going to help the community at whole. The consciousness awakening, on the global picture, not just on a tin hat society, right? We're not the tin hat society.
Not even the flat Earth society.
No, we're looking at doing things globally and helping individuals globally. So that's where we find all of our guests and whatnot. So, listeners, if anyone out there is interested in being a guest on our radio show, you're more than welcome to contact me at info@lightnews.org or call me at 877-242-5721. And
Deirdre,
we can,
that's the second time you've dropped out for about 3 or 4 seconds.
Oh, well, I hear myself perfectly fine and hear everybody fine there.
Has all the ice melted from around your house?
Oh, yes, all the ice has melted from around our house. It's interesting, listeners. When you're on Skype, sometimes you get glitches and things like this. I kind of ignore them and go with the roll because, it really isn't going to matter in the end because the show is going to be what the show's going to be, and it's going to be lots of fun and excitement, and we really look forward to sharing our shows with you. So what I was mentioning was that, we are always looking for guests. So please do, if you feel like contacting us, contact us, and we would love to hear from you, see what you have to say and offer, and then go from there, because I think that topics on spirituality, self-empowerment, and self-realization are key things that people need to look at right now with the changing world and changing society. I mean, we're globally changing our outlook on everything that's going on, and it's just it's pretty cool in a lot of ways,
And we have had many guests on our show over the last 2 years who come from many different walks of life. They don't just talk about spirituality from, I had a religious background. We have people who were shaman. We've had the hypnotherapists. We've had musicians. We have artisans, many different types of people, and we love that variety because part of the tenets of spirituality is all paths lead to the Creator because the Creator is within us.
There was I'm just trying to think of where I read it, but I can't think of where I read it. But it's the tree of life, the tree of science, and the tree of spirituality all have the same roots, and it was
that's lovely.
It was really, really cool because when you think about it, that's it. We are all energetically connected all across the board, all across the world. And one of those key things that reminds me of that is, when you do your teaching, Richard, you'd often talk about I'm going to say this wrong, the Maharaja, the effect?
Oh, Maharishi
effect. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, when two or more people thinking alike or acting alike in a positive, like-minded way, pray or meditate, that they really make a change. And I think that, there's more of that happening than what we know. And I think that even though the news portrays things as negative because they want to have all that flash, you know, there's a lot more out there. We need a news channel.
Well, I saw a
stuff.
cartoon had an image of Trump, and under him was hate. Had an image of Hillary, and under her was fear. Had an image of Bernie Sanders, and under him was love. And I agree, Deirdre. I think there's a tremendous, powerful, widespread grassroots movement of people who are choosing a higher level of consciousness rooted in harmlessness and compassion. And the Maharishi effect, as you said, is where two or more people are gathered. The spiritual effect is exponential. And this has been proven since the 70s that this really is true. It really does happen. So, a lot of people feel disempowered and disenfranchised today because they say, well, what can I do? How can I stop this huge engine of these politicians, this corrupt stuff going on, this global corporate economy? And what you do is you gather together with like-minded people, and you do pray and you do meditate. And as I said earlier, you do act in accordance with what your moral and ethical compass is asking of you. And that is how you cannot stop a consciousness whose time has come. And I think that the effect of this, as you pointed out, Dee, is this movement is bringing about the higher consciousness that so many ancient peoples had predicted would happen. I think it's successfully happening, even though, you can look at the news, which is controlled by corporate media, and see that, everything's fine. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
It reminds me of, the Wizard of Oz, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But, we can always just tap those little red slippers and we're home free. So I think
they look very nice on you.
Well, thank you. I think that, most people that they just don't take the time they read everything for what it is without looking any deeper. And we really encourage you listeners to, take a deeper look. And that's one nice thing about having guests that we bring onto this show is because they do take that deeper look. Our guests are people who have had the experience, that have had the knowledge, have had the understanding, and work with other individuals to help them, through energy medicine, energy healing, chakras, or, intuition, intuitive, whatever it is that they do. They practice what we call spirituality, and they practice love and compassion. So
I've had the ability or the pleasure of knowing our guest today for some years in both a professional and personal capacity. And I'll tell you ahead of time, listeners, that our guest today does have that depth. She has a legacy, not only a heredity, but her own incarnation in this lifetime of holding that spiritual light. So how about if we go ahead and bring her on board here, Dee?
Yeah. Hey, Carol, are you there? You can unmute your mic and come join us.
I am here. Hi, Deirdre. Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm very good. A little anxious, and more excited than anxious.
Well, this is live radio. Anything goes. And the only problem is that when the bloopers come out, the bloopers stay. And it's a lot of fun. So don't worry about it, like us fumbling through things or not. But,
let's give our listeners her name.
Well, I was just going to do that. I was going to say, Carol, I would love for you to introduce yourself.
I am Carol Fitzgerald, Reverend Carol Fitzgerald. And what else shall I say? I'm have a ministry. I am a grandmother. I'm a mother. I deeply care about community and connection to our Mother Earth and to the healing of the planet, all life on this planet. And I suppose I would say that just as the Dalai Lama, I say that my true religion is kindness.
Yeah.
And
I would agree.
Yeah.
That matters.
Yeah. Well, we do have a bio that you sent us, and sometimes you can read that online. As Deirdre can tell you that sometimes when we talk to you is even deeper than just the bio. I mean, there's a few things I'd like Deirdre to bring up about you and your background. But I also want to get to some of the questions so that the main thing that listeners want is they want to know not just what you've done or books you've written. They want to know you. What is the essence of who you are?
And it's interesting because I know you gave us a bio, but I honestly believe that the person who is our guest can talk about themselves and sell themselves way better than either one of us can. But I know that you have been around for a long time doing a lot of work with women, and you support the mindfulness and the love and the compassion, and some of those women's groups that you lead are just amazing in how you have helped people change their lives. So, with that in mind, do you want to just give us a little tidbit of what the work is that you do?
I would love to. The first question, and I'll just speak it because it leads me into what I do. The question was, what drew you to this facet of pastoral service in your ministry? And this facet of pastoral service is compassionate care for the process, the journey of not just living, but also the process of dying and beyond. So I entitled it Compassionate Care Before and Beyond the Last Breath.
Ooh, lovely, lovely, lovely.
And
Beautiful.
So what drew me to this particular place I find myself in my service on the planet right now is I was recalling I was about 8 years old. So my ministry, my priesthood, as I sometimes call it, or priestesshood, is a calling. And when I look back through my life, I can see that all along these, I'll call them holy orders, have coaxed and directed and guided the various facets of my pastoral service. So about 10 years ago, I had this memory that resurfaced about when I was 8 years old, and my beloved goldfish had died. And I was on my way to the very back of our yard to perform her funeral and to bury this little friend. And I was carrying her in a little makeshift coffin, which is an empty Parliament cigarette box that was lined with cotton. My parents used to smoke, and Parliaments had these really cool boxes that were not like anything that we have now around here. And as I walked past my dad, he announced in this kind of knowing, matter-of-fact way, she's going to be a lady minister when she grows up. And,
wow.
It's odd how remembering his prophetic words of now almost 65 years ago, they still have the effect of validating the deeper forces that have guided this life of mine. And whenever I have doubts, whenever I feel my strength waning in any way, or that's one of my foundational pieces that I can go back to and remember. 8 years old, burying my goldfish, having a funeral, and having my dad, who, by the way, is the nephew of my great uncle, who is I'm sort of part of that lineage. So,
the lineage of what, Carol?
Of the Universal Church of the Master, of spiritualist philosophy and religion, which holds that the ancestors, that there is life following the death, we call it a death, and that there is connection. There can be connection between the ancestors and those of us living in a body right now, and that there's a universalist quality to the teachings. There's no dogma, but there are basic, fundamental spiritual tenets that guide the Universal Church of the Master and guide me in my work. But before all of that, in my teens and 20s, I was deeply immersed in the teachings of Jesus. The belief was that if one accepts Christ as one's Savior, that at death, one lives eternally in heaven, and if one doesn't accept, then one lives eternally in hell.
Right.
And those teachings eventually became too narrow for me, and who I was as a being. And in my 30s, I was drawn to the Hindu teachings and I was a student of Muktananda, who was a Siddha and Vedanta guru. And I had several synchronistic and quite miraculous experiences in his presence that opened me to the vastness and mystery of the unseen realms and to the concepts of reincarnation and rebirth. So that's sort of the beginnings of what started to awaken me.
Do you use the concepts then in your work now, like those concepts of reincarnation and rebirth and all of those teachings and styles? Do you use those now with your clients and the people?
Yes, I do, and let me say that over the past 25 years, I have been a student of Buddhist teachings. Mm-hmm. So I feel like each one of these paths, the Native American path was a path I followed for a decade. Each path is sort of a puzzle piece of who I am and what I needed to remember so that I could fully be of full service.
And that is exactly what we were talking about earlier was, we have this tree of life, and the tree of life is made up of many branches. Mm-hmm. Yes. And, that you're talking a perfect example of how we have all of these different gifts and we have all of these different beliefs out there, and how they each actually do in many ways work together, and they mesh. And they mesh, and they intertwine, and they develop to help individuals grow.
I think you're right, Dee. I think it's universal. I think we are all prepared for what is next in our life. And I think as we incarnate with those strengths and gifts. And so many times we only have a vague awareness at best. How we're doing right now will suit us perfectly for what is to come in our future. Certainly, you and I, Dee, have talked about this before. We're in our own past experience, you and yours, me and mine. We were always prepared for what's going to happen now. So here you and I are doing very spiritual work, but grounded. But you and I have a very grounded background in each of our life's experiences so that we can do what we're doing now. And I think our listeners should take Carol's point and really think about their own lives as to what brought them to this point has prepared them for this place in their life now.
Absolutely. That each path that I followed, each experience I have, each relationship I have is an opportunity for me to have greater understanding of myself and everyone else. I could have a lot of judgment around people who are, follow the born again Christian path, and I don't, because I was there. I understand it, and I know the gifts that it gave me at the time in my life when I needed those gifts.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So so as far as the concepts of reincarnation and rebirth. They work for me. It's about what works for me and then embodying that. So there are certain tendencies I have that, believe me, I would rather not have this consciousness stream have to deal with in another lifetime. I'm done with them. I'm bored. Let's try something new. So that's one of the encouragements, one of the ways in which I encourage myself to clean up my act and clear
Yeah.
especially at
The,
this stage of my life.
yeah, and
Well,
the compassion and the tolerance for other people's paths. I was recalling a saying from the indigenous peoples. It said, "May I not criticize another person until I've walked a mile in their moccasins."
Mhm. Yes,
And I think that's part of our perspective is honoring people's paths. That's their way, and that's what they were prepared for, and that is them doing what they must do.
absolutely, absolutely.
and that's just it. Like one of our dear friends, Eric Lynn, this morning, he said, we are all trying to live out our lives without an owner's manual. Others people's struggles are just as real as ours. And I think, it is so true. And sometimes we get caught up in the idea that, well, it's only us. We're the only ones that are having this problem. And we are the only ones that are going through this at this time. And people forget that there's other people out there that have and that are willing to step in to give you guidance and help.
It does sharpen your focus, though. I mean, when you're going through something yourself, it really does kind of make you think, oh, I'm the only one going through this. And we don't always, it's like if you get a headache, sometimes you just don't think about taking an aspirin. It's like we don't always think about those things that are really going to help us when it's crucial. And how come we say change is okay as long as it's for the other guy,
Yeah.
as long as it's not for me. So I think these are also points that our listeners really, really can benefit from. Is we are a global community of spirits. There is no separation, but sometimes we think there is. But there's a unifying factor of our spirituality if we just open our hearts and ask the questions and see that other people have their challenges and their path. And part of that key, you're always going to hear me say, even within those challenges, we always have the inner strength to meet those challenges. We just don't have to do it feeling that we're all alone.
Right.
Yes.
And we learn from one another. And, human beings, as you're saying here, human beings are basically, we have the same challenges. We have different movies with a little bit different script, but the players are pretty much the same. We have archetypal challenges and blessings that come to us, and through my work, I have come to deeply understand the power and importance of honoring life's transitions. Yeah. So being a ceremonialist, being a minister, a priestess, I assist people in honoring the beginnings in their lives, the changes that happen in their lives, the blessings, the clearings, even divorce, to honor that transition and endings, as I move into my 70th decade. I already have. I'm in 71. I'm really have a sharper focus on the aspect of endings and how crucial it is I'll speak for myself, for me, to be slowing down.
Yeah.
To
True.
allow the deeper meaning and influence of each particular life event for me to fully feel it.
I feel the same way. I'm 63 and I've been thinking the same thing. And I wanted to just insert one of your questions here because I feel this is something you can really help our listeners with. Your question, one of them is, if living a good life includes preparing for death, what are the most important things that need to be looked at?
Well, I think that there's, it's just a wide range. I was thinking about, well, what would I want to say first? And, there's sort of the medical model, which, advanced directives and getting clear about what you want and, even your memorial, for gosh sakes, people are designing, their own memorials. But I would say relationship with yourself, relationship with the people in your life. My sister passed about 5 years ago almost. And one of the things that she said to me when she knew that her life, her illness of cancer was terminal, she said, people want to come and visit me and they want to say goodbye or, they want to have one last time. But, if I'm not clear with them, if we have unfinished business, I don't have the time and I don't have the energy. It was more the energy to process what is in the way of a peaceful connection between us. And so I watched her narrow, her focus of who she felt that it was right to be connecting with. And I'm thinking about regrets. Regrets are it's one of the reasons people avoid the topic of death is because they think about what it is that they have regrets around.
What they
Right.
didn't finish, what they wish they hadn't done.
What I did do that wasn't, that wasn't in alignment with myself or another person. And so to make, to sit down and make, lists of, okay, what is it that I regret having done? What is it I regret not having done? And what can I do about that now? Here.
And that's interesting because I have seen people, or I've been with people who have transitioned, and that is a big thing. Is what is happening and everything, and the processing and the family processing and all of those things. And it's interesting because I have family members that have transitioned, and I remember when they started to go into the story of regrets, right before they're transitioning, and I had a conversation and I said, well, did you do the best that you could do at the time that you did what you did? And the answer was yes. And I said, well, then how can you regret it?
Right.
You have had the opportunity to have that as a gift, as a lesson. And even if it didn't, work out the way you had thought it might work out, you did the best that you could at that time. And I think that sometimes it's hard for people to understand that, we're not given a manual. We come into this world with birth and then we do life. We do it.
When you think about this person that they were dying, right? They were in their dying process. When you think about what if they had been able to look at these things way before they were in their dying process. And if they had been able to do that, they could have lived in greater peace and greater harmony within themselves for, a lot longer. I'll tell you a story about a woman whose death, I didn't attend the death, but the day before her death, I visited her. She had brain tumor. She was in hospice. And she fell going to the bathroom. They got her back in bed, and something compelled me to start just chanting Om Mani Padme Hum, which is a chant that is a Buddhist chant that is chanted at a death, among other things, but primarily that at transition times. She joined me, and we chanted like that for 45 minutes.
Oh, wow. And
then I said to her, and I could tell she was tired, and I gave her some water, and I said, I'll be back tomorrow. And she died the next day. And what I noticed in observing her life, now this is a woman who had a lot of angst about the way other people behaved, about how people should be doing things, about how disappointed she was. And over the course of 5 months, I watched this woman drop all of the shoulds, all of the should haves, all of the judgments. And she kept saying, what is most important right now? What is your truth right now? And so, over this past almost a year now, I have been leading a group. This is one of the reasons, this is one of the pieces that drew me to this facet of my work. I've been leading a group called A Year to Live, based on the teachings and the book of a Buddhist teacher, Stephen Levine, and his wife, Andrea. And there's this small, courageous, willing group of people that have said, we said in the very beginning, we have 1 year to live. How shall we live it? What shall we pay attention to? What shall we explore and examine in our lives? And what shall we enjoy? And we've been doing this for now. Actually, we've had to extend our lives a couple of months because of some things that came up. But how huge this has been to fill out our advanced directives, which are about what are the conditions under which you want to be still breathing, or that you want to have people keep you alive, to have measures taken that keep you alive or not.
So
do not
yeah, you're talking basically about what would be the ideal transition to look like for someone.
Right.
Exactly. What is it from this vantage point right now, because, we never know. It reminds me of women who are pregnant and they are planning their birth of their child, and they have all of these ideals
in detail
about what they want. They don't want any pain medication. They don't want to go to a hospital. They don't want, a C-section. They don't want a lot of things. They want it to be this way. And, life happens.
That's what I was going to say. You get thrown a curveball whenever you think you've got everything organized, right?
Well, the
Byron
spirit...
Katie says, if every time you go to war with reality, you're going to lose. So, and losing can look like deep disappointment. It can look like depression. It can look like, so you make these plans and you say what it is you would like, and then there's a letting go. You have to realize that you don't know what the circumstances are actually going to be like, but you are creating an atmosphere of choice for yourself in reflecting upon these wishes that you have. Who do you want to have around you? What do you want your last moments to be like? What's your bucket list? What is your spiritual path like, and how would you like to have it be honored and supported during your dying process?
Right.
And those kinds of questions actually are empowering. They're empowering.
The spiritual teachers, they talk about how we all want to live a life that is productive and meaningful. And that, when we look at some of our greatest fears, as one of them is relevance, is what we did in life relevant and meaningful? And do we feel that we contributed something to life, which also goes towards dignity? I mean, if you only had a year to live, how would you preserve your dignity? I mean, outside of the accumulation of personal wealth and the egoic stuff, that outside of that, how would you choose to preserve your dignity, knowing philosophically that there's life after life, that there really is no death, but that that your physical condition will not be in space and time at some point.
And how then shall we live? I have this quote. Stephen Levine is one of my most precious teachers, and I'd like to read something from him right now. Death can come at any moment. You could die this afternoon. We really could. I'm just saying, this is me, Carol. We could really, I could get in my car and never actually in this lifetime talk to you again. You could die tomorrow morning. You could die on your way to work. You could die in your sleep. Most of us try to avoid the sense that death can come at any time, but its timing is unknown to us. Can we live each day as if it were our last? Can we relate to one another as if there were no tomorrow?
I love it. I love it.
So I have said to my sons, I remember being in Mexico a few years ago and having some unresolved things with one of my sons. And I was in a, what do they call those computer coffee places,
Internet cafe.
Yeah, internet cafe. And I remember emailing my son and saying, we don't know what's going to happen. We need to stay connected, and we need to resolve whatever it is so that each moment we are at greatest peace with each other as we can be.
As we can
because
be, yeah.
Neither one of us want to have the other leave and have regret.
I know. My father passed away, almost 20 years ago now, and he passed away without being able to say goodbye to his twin sister because of family regrets or family things. So I totally understand. Carol, I need to ask you to shamelessly promote yourself. I would love to know how people can get a hold of you, because I know that you offer such a fantastic grounding and compassionate practice. How would people get a hold of you if they wanted to contact you and get more information on what you do?
Well, right now, my wedding, I have a website that is primarily for my wedding work, my ceremonial work, and I am in the process of building my website for the broader transitional work that I do. And let me tell you that my vision here, let me talk about hospice. I think hospice has done some fabulous groundwork. The movement.
Well, let's give them your contact information first.
Let's let them know how to get a hold of you first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ceremonies, CEREMONIES at Carol, CAROL, Fitzgerald, FITZGERALD.com. And I have a phone number, which is, in the United States, 650-722-1292. And my website is, of course, is carolfitzgerald.com. And what I am developing beyond the memorial work that I've done with people, the funeral work, is providing a rich, vast panoply of support for the dying process, because I realize that many people do not want to face, even though they say they do, it's hard to do it, and especially hard to do it by yourself. That's why having this group was so valuable for everyone. You had support. You could get scared. You could talk about it. Yeah. You had the encouragement to keep filling out your forms, But having body work, having spiritual counseling work for people and their families, I have this sense, my vision is that we can get to people who are not dying through the process of their loved one dying. So if you can bring consciousness into the dying process, then the people who are living and being the caregivers actually are being educated. They're being enlightened.
That's amazing, and it's interesting because we ask all of our guests, just towards the end of their interview, for a tip that they could give our listeners, and I'm not going to ask you for one because that to me is the best tip that any guest could give someone, is to take that moment and be present. You're really telling them to be present.
Yeah.
Yes, but let me go ahead and ask me for the tip.
Oh, okay. We've got 15 minutes left, and so it is about time that we do close with our interview with you. So, what would be a tip or a tool that you would give to our listeners to support them along their journey?
Thank you. All right, so here it is. This is the way that it generally goes. A person takes their last breath, and within 15 minutes, a half an hour, maybe an hour at the most, the body is swept into a body bag and whisked out of the house or the hospital room. And the process of the spirit, the consciousness of this person, does not have the spaciousness and the respect and the blessing to take the time that it needs with the love and support that it needs to make this transition. So I as an example, I call forth another one of my teachers, Joanna Macy, when her husband died of a heart attack. They immediately took him to the hospital because they didn't know whether they could revive him. And on the way to the hospital, she said, "I want his body."
Oh.
And they got to the hospital and they pronounced him dead. And because they had an arrangement with a green burial cemetery in Marin, that burial company came, picked up his body, then took it immediately to their house. They put him in his bed. They put him in his favorite soft old plaid shirt, and they had people come and say goodbye to him, the people that were close to him, and read poems to him and talk to him. And downstairs they were making his shroud. They were sewing. People would then come down and maybe do a few stitches on a shroud that was going to be his body would be enfolded in.
Oh,
and then in 3 days, so they had dry ice, they had, I'm saying that we can live and die outside the box. And that we have more choices than we realize now that we do. Right. So, and at 3 days, and he wasn't Buddhist, but she was, so she didn't do any of the Buddhist stuff on him, but
well, I hope you will continue to bring this knowledge and consciousness to our listeners and to the public, because this type of information and outside the box thinking and understanding of spirituality is precisely what is helping people liberate themselves from being too much in the box.
Right. And to help with the evolution of the spirit. This is what is crucial. Yeah. It's crucial. So I would, have me back on, and we'll take even one of these questions and thoroughly examine it.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Carol. And once again, what is your contact information if people would like to be in contact with you?
ceremonies@carolfitzgerald.com, or my phone number, which is 650-722-1292. And thank you so much for everything you're doing. Thank you for this service, helping people to get their message out and people to receive it. It's precious work. Thank you both.
Okay, well, thank you, Reverend Carol Fitzgerald. She is a minister with Universal Church of the Master, as I am as well. And like I said, I've known Carol for years, and that was Integrity speaking to all you listeners. So remember that these shows are recorded. You can download them and listen to them as you wish. And Deirdre, I thought those amazing spiritual nuggets of wisdom.
I think she got dropped.
Oh, she got dropped. Okay.
It's you and me.
Deirdre is reconnecting through the spiritual realms. Are you there, Dee?
She says, just finish without me.
Oh.
Oh,
Oh my goodness. Well, that's really something. That's a first on 2 years plus of the Light News radio station that our fabulous co-host Deirdre actually got dropped off the end of the show. So there is life after
the last
Deirdre
breath.
dropped. But anyway, this is the time of the show when we talk about the calendrical type stuff that's coming up. And one of the easiest.
I love that we have Skype. You know, we have Skype, and we all get dropped.
Deirdre's back, guys. She just stepped all over me.
I did. Sorry. Yeah, I just love Skype. You know, when we all get dropped, or some of us get dropped, and we it's a joyous experience. And I'm sorry for walking all over you.
Before we get to the calendrical stuff, let's just tell our listeners that in order to get a hold of us, because we have to shamelessly promote ourselves too, and our website is lightnews.org, lightnews.org, lightnews.org. Okay, Dee, go.
Okay, well, you know, it was great having Carol on the show today, and it's too bad that we've lost her, but we'll have her back at another time, and we can go into more depth and details of her life journeys and everything. So we just want to say thank you and whatnot. And to reach Carol again, you can. Oh, there you are. You did get back. So I was just saying thank you because we're going to go into the mundaneness of the rest of the show now. So Carol, briefly, if people want to get a hold of you, they can reach you at carolfitzgerald.com, or they could call you at 650-722-1292. And again, her email is ceremonies@carolfitzgerald.com. So thank you, Carol. It's been a wonderful show.
Thank you, and thanks, Richard.
Yes, you're so welcome, Carol. Thank you.
Take good care.
Oh, we will. Thank you. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
So, you know, oh my goodness, it's been, I don't know for you, Richard, but for me, the last couple of weeks has been absolutely
we have so much on the go.
Crazy.
And so what did we do? We added 2 shows per month to our calendar.
I was just going to say that. When the shit doesn't hit the fan, it hits the fan. I think I need to pull out the old Airplane movies and watch them again because we need some of that slapstick humor to get through the rest of the month. But we have all kinds of stuff going on, and I wanted to tell our listeners that we're working diligently to keep you informed on our Facebook page, our Twitter page, our LinkedIn pages, our Instagram pages. What else have we got on the go? Oh, we're starting a Pinterest page, so we'll hopefully put up our quotes and things like that on there. But you can always reach me, and I love to hear from you. And my email is info@lightnews.org, or you can call me at 877-242-5721. And, you know, leave me a message, ask some questions. What do you want on the show? What do you want to see with us with our new shows? The new shows starting July 6th will be Richard and I. And there'll be a great show because no guests, it's him and I, and we are hoping to be able to answer really tough questions about connecting and people being able to connect. And
so send in those questions ahead of time, everybody.
Yeah.
Because twice a month we'll have guests, and twice a month it'll be a half-hour show with just Deirdre and I. It'll be rapid fire street of spirituality. Rock 'em, sock 'em spirituality, guys. So if you got some tough questions, I love the tough questions best. So please let us know ahead of time. Just email us, and we'll read them on the show.
Yeah, we will. And if you don't want your name read, just tell us, and we won't read your name. But we will definitely answer those questions because we feel it is really important to do so. But I wanted to say Richard, you're now in San Diego after some traveling to Canada and to San Jose, and you're
Right.
going to be in San Diego until the 6th of July.
Right.
So if anyone is interested in booking Richard for a speaking engagement or booking a private session, we have our special going on right now where we've dropped the private session rate to $147 US, which is a steal of a deal. You can get a hold of us on our website, www.lightnews.org. You can book online there. Of course, you could also book through our Facebook page. There's a link there that on the sidebar. So you're in San Diego, and then you'll come to Calgary. You'll be in Calgary to teach the 9th and 10th, and then you're off to a little place in British Columbia, Canada called Blind Bay, where you're going to be doing flower readings, past life readings, and private sessions with some of the people there. Mm-hmm. We've got a graduation ceremony coming up in July with the group 14 students.
Right.
Just so much stuff on the go, and of
part of my healers training program, which is ongoing in different cities, including San Jose and San Diego, Camrose, Alberta, Calgary, Alberta. So we've got a lot on the go. And anybody interested in the healers training program, just go to our website. It's very easy to follow, and I'd love to talk about how you could become a student and learn how to do what we do.
Well, and it's interesting because we are now doing flower readings over Skype. And yes. Dr. Delicic will, for a group of 6 or more people, do a flower reading. And you can go to our website on the Flower Readings workshop page, Intuitive Flower Readings, and check out what that's all about, because I tell you, that is the neatest way to get to understand and to learn who Dr. Delicic is and why he does what he does and how it actually mind-boggling works. And it's so much fun. So, listeners, we are always available to answer your questions and to get a hold of, either Richard or I to chat and I don't know, just ask those really tough questions, because I think it's important, and people, I don't know, I just see so many people struggling right now. So to me, just take a minute and ask those questions. We have our sacred earth.
That's okay. That's okay.
Flip.
That's
we
okay.
Have our Journey of the Sacred Heart meditation retreat to Sedona coming up. And I have one for sure space left. If there's anyone interested, please let me know. I can't believe we've almost filled up a second year with, people wanting to go and recharge the grid and visit Sedona. And this year we're doing that pink Jeep trip where they're taking us into a sacred site. Of course, lunches and your accommodations are covered. You just need to get yourself there and whatnot. So, lots of great things happening. And our next show with a guest will be July 13th. And we are pleased to have Michelle Qureshi back for a second time.
Yeah, and she was on in October of last year. She's a wonderful musician, and we might do a live meditation, guys.
No, I'm not saying might. I think you will. I really think that you guys will do a live meditation, and I think that you'll need to tune in for that. So it will be on July 13th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And, of course, we'll keep you posted with what's going on. And we have like 2 minutes left here, Richard. So what do you want to say to our listeners?
This is the solstice. It's the time of the year when everything bursts forth from spring and fully flowers. This is your time to let go of fear and trepidation and to embrace courage in your heart to do what love motivates you to do. It is the time to stand your ground as fully awakened self-empowered, luminous beings of light. Those are not pretty words. You really, really are a spiritual being who has a physical existence. You can see past the fabric of illusion that is so present in our world. See things as they are. Live your life on purpose. Listen to Carol's interview. Listen to our past shows and apply these spiritual teachings to your life, and you will grow in ways you couldn't possibly imagine. And so, as always, I know I speak for Deirdre when I say we are so blessed that you are part of the Light News Radio Realms of Self-Empowerment family. So I tell you truly, may the principles of harmlessness and compassion be the ever-present, ever-constant guide of your every intention, your every thought, and your every action. And so it is, and so it shall be. It is done. Stay attuned, everyone.
Thank you for joining Light News Radio, where you are self-empowered for your whole being. Be sure to join us again in 2 weeks and connect with us at www.lightnews.org.